Hey guys, welcome to the wood shop here at Tennessee Rustic, and today we are going to be working on a whiskey barrel lid. I've been making these for a while, and what I normally do with these is I do some laser engraving on them, and a lot of people take these to use at their weddings and stuff. So this is the one that we're going to be working on with today. My nephew is going to be getting married here in the next several weeks, so we want to get this lid ready, and we're going to do some really nice engraving on it, and we're going to use this as a wedding present. So I've got a supplier up in Kentucky. I'm in Tennessee, obviously. So I've got a supplier up in Kentucky, right outside of Louisville, that I get these from, and it comes from a lot of different distilleries in that area. Now I know what you're probably thinking. I'm in Tennessee. Why don't I try to get some of Jack Daniels? Which it's a long story for those. It's really hard to get Jack Daniel stuff because a lot of theirs gets shipped over to Scotland that they make Scotch whiskey in. So getting the stuff in Kentucky is actually it's a lot cheaper, and you can also get a lot more of them than just to go with Jack Daniels. So the first thing I want to do when I start getting these is I want to get this ready to go through my planer. Now my planer is only 13 inches wide. It's just a normal DeWalt planer that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot or something. And these whiskey barrel lids are 22 inches. So we can't run this whole thing through there. So what I like to do is just break these apart. Now these are tongue and grooved, and they may be a little bit more challenging to put back together later on. But it's just really going to help that we can get this through and get all sides cleaned off. Now, like I said, these are tongue and grooved. I have got some lids that are actually a little bit easier to work with that have dowel rods inside these that holds them together, so they won't come apart as easy, um, especially when you're shipping them. But for me, these tongue and grooved ones, and my other ones as well, once I get everything ready to put back together, I will actually use these strips that you can see. I get these from Lowe's as well. These are 3/8 inch by I think an inch and a half wide. They come in 36-inch lengths. I use these so when I'm putting everything back together, I can take them and put them on the back and screw them in and put some more bracing in it. So that way, when you ship it, or especially when you're hanging it, they are not going to come apart. So let's go ahead and let's jump over here to the planer and let's get started. So apparently when I did my recordings, I hit the mute button and I did not record any of my audio. So when I go to put my wood into my planer, I want to back my planer off with the handle, um, just enough so that I can freely move it in and out. And then you want to gradually turn the handle in until you can feel just a little bit of grab on it to where it's not sliding in and out. And then from there, you want to back it off just a little bit more. So that way, when you go to put your piece in, is that you're not starting off taking a big chunk out of it. Now you also have on mine, you have a finishing and a dimensioning section. To begin with, you're going to want it on the dimensioning side. And here we're going to get a closer view so we can actually see you have a switch 1 and a switch 2. Now, you never want to change that setting while the machine is off. It's always better to have the machine running when you swap it over from one side to the other. When you go to run your pieces through, like we're going to have 3 pieces here, we want to run each piece through each time before we lower it down. When you do lower it down, which let's mention real quick, I've got my vacuum hooked up to the back of this, and I really recommend that you do that, or else you're just going to have chips just shooting all over the back of your workshop. So here we are running each piece through. Um, before we lower it down anymore to make sure that each piece is going to be the same thickness on the top and the bottom. Now you notice that each time I run pieces through, I only crank it maybe a quarter to a half a turn down a little bit, and that's just to make sure that we're not taking off too much at each time and everything is going to be uniform. So I'll sped up the video here because this is a little bit longer, tedious process. If you just seen, I showed what a board looks like once it starts getting into, it starts clearing it off. And you just want to repeat this process until everything comes out looking good and all of the stuff off the top is removed, where you have a clean surface to work with. And I just flipped it over to the dimensioning or the finishing side, and we're going to run each piece through. The finishing actually just slows the process down to where it just cleans it up a little bit. So now we're actually getting ready to start working on the back side, and I've got it flipped back over to dimensioning. The main reason I clean up the backs is just because to make it a little bit easier, so it doesn't leave when somebody does hang the whiskey barrel lid on the wall, it doesn't leave black spots or anything. It also helps if you don't clean up the back, the lid could start producing a whiskey smell, and some people may like that, some people don't. And now I've got it flipped back over to finishing. And I will show you what each lid looks like on the back. So here we've got all three pieces of our lid we brought back over to the table, and you can see they look a lot better now than what they did before. So what you want to do here is you just want to try to you can tell the front from the back, because the back, like it's shown, has a little bit more of a bevel than the front does. The centerpiece I actually have flipped over here to show the difference from the front to the back. And when you go to put these together, all you want to try to do is to get the tongue and groove pieces locked up together. Sometimes it can be a little aggravating. I do keep a rubber mallet around. Sometimes it does help when you're putting things back together to use a little gentle persuasion. And here I am. I'm fitting the pieces back together. At this step, if you wanted to, you could. It's not necessary. Especially when I put the straps on there, you could put a little bit squeeze of wood glue in there. Now, of course, my lid flopped down on my webcam, so you may not be able to see it as clearly. I'll get it flipped up in a second. You can also use just a little bit of wood glue. You could squirt it down in the crack when you put everything together. It would just add another layer of adhesion to it. But like I said, once we put our straps and everything on it, we shouldn't have any issues with it being held. There we go. Now you can see better. You can also use a clamp to put things together if you wanted to. Especially if you're going to put glue on it, just try to clamp everything to hold it together. Have found over the years that this is just an unnecessary step. The straps that I put on there hold very well. Drink a Diet Coke. So I like to have a yardstick around when I'm putting these things together. It's just a rougher measurement. You don't have to really think about this too hard. And what I like to do is lay this strap across the center,
And then I like to take my yardstick and measure from one side to the other, from the top of the bottom of the strap to the bottom of the lid, and the top of the strap to the top of the lid. Usually on those, you're going to wind up having about 9 to 9.25 inches on the top and bottom. That will help you get that as centered as possible. Also, if you see, I like to put a couple pilot holes on the end of my the strap I'm using. That's just to help with that when I'm putting a screw in, it doesn't crack as much. You also want to check the measurement on the ends just to make sure that you're not crooked from one side to the next. And here's the other side just to check in to make sure that we are even. It is a round lid, so it's not really going to make that much of a difference if it is turned just a little bit. So I like using 1 inch screws, and you cannot find those at the hardware stores. I got these off Amazon. The reason I like 1 inch over 1 1/4, which is what you're normally going to find at the store, is that the 1 1/4, once you tighten those down, since we are planing the lids, will actually stick through just a little bit. The 1 inches hold just as well, but they will not hold off or stick out the front. And then I take my drill and I just snug in one side. And then put the other side. Now, after we put the two side screws in, I'll take my other drill that has a 1/8 inch drill bit, and I will go through and I will put a drill hole where every single slat is across the board. Some people may consider this overkill. In my opinion, if you've had a couple lids break on you, um, the more screws you can put in it, the more it's going to hold during shipment. I've only had a couple that have actually been damaged in shipment, but since I've been adding more screws in, I haven't had any. You could actually drop these things from a pretty high distance and it probably wouldn't mess them up. I don't recommend you try that. I'm just saying you probably could. So once you get that strap on, you want to put the bottom strap on. And instead of having to measure each time, I actually have a little block right there that's spaced just the right distance where I need to be, that I can butt that up against the strap. Take my 9 inch strap and put that across the bottom. Maybe I didn't mention it. My center strap is usually 18 inches and the top and bottom strap are each 9 inches. So then you just want to take that and you just want to drill you a couple holes in there. Grab a couple more screws. And tighten them down. Then you want to do the same thing. Take the drill bit and just drill a couple holes where the slats are on that bottom strap. Then you want to do the same thing for the top strap. Put that in place. Drill your holes. Then put some more screws in. Then drill the holes for the remaining slats. I don't know if I mentioned, but these slats are roughly about 1.5 inches wide, 3/8 inch thick. I do get those from either Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever is closer to you. Now, after that, you can pick the lid up. You can shake it. It's actually pretty sturdy. It's not really going to come apart. I do like to add a little bit of extra um, stiffness to it. So I will actually take smaller pieces of the strap, cut them down, usually about 3 inches a piece, and I'll put them in a couple other strategic places. Now, right there at the top, I don't put anything because when I get done with this lid and I'm ready to uh, put the mounting block on it, that mounting block will serve as a extra piece. So there's my extra blocks. And I usually put 2 on the bottom side of the center strap and then the top side of the bottom strap. And make sure you position those so they are over a brake line in between 2 slats. So now that we have those on there, the lid is a lot sturdier. It's going to be, it could take a little bit more of a hit before it would actually start getting damaged. So here, this step is, this is me. You might find a better way to do this. What I like to do here is I take a small drill bit and on each side where the center strap is, right at the center, I like to drill a hole. And the reason for that is when I flip it over, it makes it a lot easier to, when I put my line for my engraving, it just makes it where I know that the engraving is going to be level with the way it's going to be held. Then just clean it up so it's a little bit easier to see the hole, get the debris and stuff off of it. So you could put a straight edge across from each hole to the one hole to the other, and you could draw a line, then that way you know the exact center line of where your engraving needs to start. So another thing I like to do to make it a little bit easier to do cleanup at the end is I have these 12-inch rolls of masking tape, And I like to take these and run them across the board, um, just so that when I'm doing my engraving, that I'm not actually marking on the lid. I'm marking on the tape, and it's just a little bit easier to clean up. Less sanding in the future. The engraving for this one's going to be a little bit taller, so I'm going to overlap my masking tape. I also like to use a decal smoother. We make decals as well. I use a decal smoother to rub on the masking tape just to make sure that it is going to stay down. You can get those off Amazon. They are pretty handy. And here we are, we're going to roll a little bit more across the bottom. Normally I have a 24-inch roll that I have misplaced. So here I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to lay it across at about the center of each hole. And then I'm going to take my wood pencil and I'm going to draw a line all the way across the straight edge. And so from here, I'm going to measure the exact center point. So if you go from the lip all the way across to the other side, you're roughly going to have 20.5 inches. Some might be a little more, some might be a little less. But generally 20.5 inches. So mine here is actually measuring just a hair under 20.5. So I'm going to go for 10.25, and I'm going to go just slight under 10.25 to make sure I'm at the exact center. So that when I'm running my engraving off the center of the board, I can line up my laser there and I will know that my design is perfectly centered on the board. Now, after I get all that done, I want to go ahead and fill up those holes. So I have this golden oak wood putty that I will just take and I will put a little bit on each side to cover up those holes. So here I am with the lid and my laser machine. And what I do here is I take the center dot. Once I have everything, the focal length measured, I will take that dot and I will try to line it up with the line that I drew on there. Then I will manually move my machine all the way over to the left and adjust the lid as needed to make sure the laser dot is still on that line, which, guys, I know it's a little bit hard to see on here, but then I will manually move it all the way over to the right. And then I will manually adjust the lid again just to make sure. And then I'll move it back left again, ensuring that it is still perfectly on the line. And then we're going to go all the way back to the right again. Right here, I'm stopping in the center, and I'm going to measure my focal length just again. And then I'm going to manually adjust it left and right until the laser dot is right at the crosshatch, the center of the line. So here we are with the lid out of the laser machine, and you can see the engraving is really, really pretty. Now, here's the reason I use the masking tape. There's a couple different reasons. One, you can actually see the smoke ring and stuff around it. That can be a little hard to clean off. You can sand it, but these engravings are usually a 16th, or a 32nd of an inch deep. So the more you sand on those, the more the engraving is actually going to start to disappear because you'll be getting down into it. So the masking tape just allows you to be able just to pull the tape off and not have as much cleanup. What you can also do is if you want to spray paint it, which I sometimes do, I like getting the project, the cheap black spray paint from Lowe's or um, Home Depot, and just spray paint it. I use black. You could use another color if you want to. There's a shot of just the cheap spray paint I use. It works great. It like I said, it's a unnecessary step. You can do it or you cannot do it. I just prefer to do it because it makes cleanup at the end just a little bit easier. So before I actually start pulling the tape and everything off, I want to go ahead and start getting this lid ready to go on the wall. So I have these little blocks that I use. I put keyholes in them with my CNC, and I'll put that in the center, and it's got 4 holes in it, and I will use those to run 1 5/8" screws into the wood to make it easier to mount. And then at the bottom, as you hang this lid, uh, the to keep the bottom from bouncing up against the wall, I like taking these little rubber stoppers and putting those on the bottom. There's the rubber stoppers. I get those off Amazon, and they are just secured to the back of the piece with a little screw. And it will just keep it from leaving scuff marks and stuff on the wall if it bounces back and forth. So here I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to start removing the tape. The water spots on it is just from where I didn't, my dryer was getting full on my CNC. Because I do run a air assist on it, and it just helps with a more efficient burn. You can actually burn with less power. I have better burns at less power. This part can be a little tedious. Here I'm using a razor blade and it's not working out so well. So I got these little decal picks. Got those off Amazon, and that just makes the cleanup with the masking tape a little bit better. So after I get all those off, I just want to take my hand sander and I want to sand the two spots on the sides. And before, I like to use this Minwax spray polyurethane. But before you spray it, you want to take it over to an air compressor and then spray everything out. So here the lid looks with it being, I have 2 coats of polyurethane on it, and it really helps bring out the color of the wood. It makes the engraving pop even more. It just makes everything look so much better. So at this point, we're pretty much just complete with the lid. You might want to just double check everything. You can put a couple layers of polyurethane on it. That's completely unnecessary. It's not really going to, after the first couple coats, it really won't change how the wood looks. Obviously, if they're going to put it outside, you want to put a couple extra coats on there just for added security. But right there, we have a absolutely beautiful whiskey barrel lid ready to be given to the recipient. Guys, I want to thank you for my pay. Come and watch this. If you don't care, subscribe so you can try to keep up with videos I'll make in the future. Thanks, guys.